Hey everybody, what's up? It's Rob Dodson. Welcome back to the Alleycast Show. So today, as promised, we're going to be doing an episode on Nvda, the free screen reader for Windows. So to get started with Nvda, follow me over here to my laptop, and I've already gone over to nvaccess.org. So this is the official website of Nvda. Nvda stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access. And what I want to do here is just go click on the download button. And there's the nice thing about Nvda is that it is a free and open source project, and so they get their money through donations. And so if you have the means to and you like Nvda, you can consider donating before you download. So as you go through the download form, there's the little option here to do a donation if you would like, and then you can just click this download button. And I've already gone ahead and downloaded Nvda, so I'm just kind of ready to rock. So what I'm going to do is fire it up using Control-Alt-N.
Welcome to Nvda dialog. Welcome to Nvda.
So I'm going to hit the caps lock key to tell it to chill and stop talking for a sec. Similar to VoiceOver on the Mac, Nvda has kind of like a special Nvda modifier key, which normally is mapped to the insert key. But this dialog also lets you map it to the caps lock key, which is quite helpful if you're on a laptop. There's a few other options in this dialog, like always show the dialog when it starts, or start Nvda when you open up Windows. But again, to fire it up, you hit Control-Alt-N. That's how you start the thing. I'm going to hit OK, though, because I think I'm good on these options.
Okay.
And then again, I can hit caps lock whenever I want to tell Nvda to stop talking. So what I'm going to do is give you sort of like a brief tour of how to navigate the page using Nvda. So I've got a JS bin that I've created that just has a few simple controls on it, and this will get us familiar with some of the basics of moving around in the screen reader. So I'm on this page here. This page just has a few headings, some paragraphs of text, and an input field with a sign up button next to it, right? So simple button element. So we know that most screen reader users, when they land on an unfamiliar document, are going to navigate by heading. And to do that in Nvda, we use the H key. So let's try that out.
Second heading, heading level 2. Third heading, heading level 3.
So the H key moves us forward through the headings. Shift H is going to move us backwards.
Second heading, first heading, heading level 1.
We can also move by line by pressing the up and down arrow key. So if I hit the down arrow key, we'll just move down to the next paragraph of text.
The first paragraph is full of introductory content. This is web.
Right. We can also move by individual character, too. And this is useful for screen reader users when they land on a word that maybe the text-to-speech software pronounces poorly. So like the word Udacity, it'll probably pronounce it in kind of a weird way. And so they might navigate through the individual characters to see how it's actually spelled. So to do that, we just hit the left and right arrow keys.
H, E, space, F, I, R.
Right. Pretty easy. Now, what separates Nvda from a screen reader like VoiceOver is that Nvda is a modal screen reader, meaning when you're in VoiceOver, you're kind of always in the same mode. You're sort of always browsing around. You can kind of just interact with things whenever you want. And that's because VoiceOver uses kind of an elaborate set of keyboard shortcuts to move around the screen. With Nvda, because the shortcuts are sort of more abbreviated, right? They're just single characters and things like that. It means that when we land on something like a form control, we need to tell the screen reader to switch into a special mode so we can interact with that form. So let's try that out. So I've got some form elements down here. If I want to jump to the next available form element on the page, I can hit the F key.
Edit has autocomplete hello world.
So you can see that put me on this text field. I can jump to the sign up button by hitting it again.
Sign up button.
And just like we saw with headings, Shift F is going to move us backwards.
Edit has autocomplete hello world.
Now, if I were to hit the H key to start typing in this field, what it's actually going to do, though, is just move me to the next heading, because we haven't told the screen reader to enter forms or focus mode yet. So to do that, we'll use the Nvda key, which remember is caps lock, and the space bar. And you hear that little tone, right? That little sort of typewriter sound. That tells the screen reader user that, hey, now you're in forms mode, and you can start typing text kind of free form. So I could say, hello world.
O-W-T-F-G.
And because I had the caps lock key on, it's typing in all caps. But you get the idea, right? You can type into the text field whenever you want. Now to exit forms mode, we basically do the same thing with the Nvda key and spacebar, or caps lock and spacebar to get out. And again, it'll play a little tone to tell us that we're exiting forms mode. Now the last thing I want to show you is application mode. So sometimes when you're interacting with a more complex control, something like a tree or a tab panel or something like that, the ARIA roles that you have on that element instruct the screen reader to enter application mode. And in that mode, it's just going to pass through all the key presses that you hit right to the control. And that way the control can handle all those keyboard events and sort of implement its own handling. To give you an example, I'm going to go to the very useful ARIA authoring practices guide. And I'm going to find a pattern of a sort of a complex control. So I'm going to find a tab panel.
Combo box. Tab panel. 2 point. Title tab.
With these complex elements, oftentimes the authoring practices guide provides an example implementation. So if I scroll to the bottom of the tab panel, it will give me an example I can interact with.
Will it the tabbed interface be direct? Open Ajax example tab.
OK, so here's an example tab panel on the Open Ajax site. I'll scroll this a little bit to make it easier to see. Right, that's all in frame. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start interacting with this control. So
application.
Just click on it once.
Application. Tab control. Crust tab selected 1 of 4.
And so it told us it's a tab control. It told us that it's tab selected 1 of 4. And because we're now in application mode, even though it's not playing like a special sound or anything like that, we can actually move through these elements using just the arrow keys on our keyboard. So for instance, we have the right arrow key.
Veggies tab select. Carnivore tab. Delivery tabs.
Right, that's going through and selecting different tabs. I could also hit up and down arrow keys.
Crust tab. Carnivore tab selected.
So far, so good. And if I want to move into the contents of the tab panel itself, I can hit the tab key on my keyboard.
Carnivore property page. Select carnivore.
And then we can just tab through these and hit spacebar to sort of check or uncheck the checkboxes as needed.
Space. It's space. Checked.
And then shift tab to get back to the tabs.
Tab control. Carnivore tab. Vent. Crust tab select.
Right, so far so good. Let's see, the last thing that I want to show off is kind of a really cool and useful mode. I think it's called like elements mode. So you hit caps lock and F7. So what this is going to do is basically go through, and if you remember from the voiceover tutorial, we talked about the rotor and how you can jump to headings and landmarks and links using the rotor, so you don't have to navigate through every single thing on the page manually. The elements list is basically the exact same thing for NVDA. So we can see a list of links. If we
filter by edit alt plus
hit tab, we can get down to a filter field, so we could filter down to one particular link that we're looking for. We can shift tab to go back to the top.
Tree type grouping links.
Use the arrow keys to move to, for instance, headings.
Headings radio button checked alt plus H.
And then we can use the up and down arrow keys to select one of these headings.
Links radio button checked alt. Headings radio button tree view. And level 1 examples. And main landmark examples.
And that'll take us to that portion of the page. Now, similar to VoiceOver, sometimes you might not see the page scroll as you're navigating using NVDA. That's totally fine. It's just kind of a quirk of the screen reader, but it's not something to be sort of alarmed or freaked out about. So yeah, I think that about covers it. We've touched on a lot of the basics of working with NVDA. I'm going to include a couple links down at the bottom. One is to a WebM guide that has a whole bunch of shortcuts for NVDA, kind of like a really useful cheat sheet. The other one is to my friend Marcy Sutton's egghead.io video, which goes a little bit more in depth on NVDA and actually shows how to navigate a real page on Wikipedia. So both of those resources are super useful for getting started, especially if you're new to these screen readers. Otherwise, if you have any questions, you can always leave them for me down below in the comments, or you can hit me up on a social network of your choosing. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.